As the Russian invasion of Ukraine continues, BBC News has in-depth coverage.
It's very clear the war in this area is extremely active.
This is the site of a Russian missile attack on the eastern edge of Kharkiv.
The Ukrainians have already pushed the Russians out of this city once. The fear is they're going to have to do it again.
See the headlines as they happen with breaking news alerts in the app and get the full story with bbc.com/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.
I'm David Willis in London, and this is BBC World News America. Chinese fighter jets fly close to the coast of Taiwan as Beijing halts cooperation with the US on climate change and other key issues. Israel launches multiple airstrikes on the Gaza Strip, killing a senior commander of the Palestinian group Islamic Jihad. At least 10 people have died, including a child. The US job market has defied fears of a slowdown, adding 500,000 jobs in July. And gangs in Colombia are recruiting vulnerable children as violence returns there. We have a special report.
The writing here tells drivers to put their windows down or expect bullets, and it's from FARC, the People's Army. Supposedly, the FARC demobilised nearly 6 years ago, but you'd never tell from this.
For those of you watching on PBS and around the globe, welcome to World News America. China is halting cooperation with the US in several key areas, including climate change, military talks, and efforts to combat international crime. The new measures follow a trip to Taiwan by a US congressional delegation led by the senior Democrat Nancy Pelosi. China views the visit as a challenge to its claims of sovereignty over Taiwan, a self-ruled island which sees itself as distinct from the mainland. Well, our correspondent Rupert Wingfield-Hayes sent this report from the capital, Taipei. I'm going to take you to the Middle East now, where at least 10 Palestinians, including a commander of the Islamic Jihad group, have been killed in Israeli strikes on the Gaza Strip. An infant was also among the victims. Israel's Prime Minister Yair Lapid said the strikes were a precise counter-terror operation against an immediate threat. And well, as he spoke, rocket fire was launched from Gaza towards Israel in retaliation, reportedly reaching the south of Tel Aviv. Well, our Middle East correspondent Yolande Nell has more details now. Yolande Nell there. The US job numbers were released on Friday, and they outstripped even President Biden's prior optimism. 582,000 jobs were added in July, lowering the rate of unemployment in the US to levels last seen before the onset of the pandemic. Nonetheless, concerns remain about the state of the world's largest economy, with inflation currently at a 40-year high, of course, and worries about the possibility of a recession. So where do today's job numbers leave us? Well, to discuss this, I'm joined now by Betsy Stevenson, former chief economist at the US Department of Labor. Ms. Stevenson, thank you very much for joining us on World News America. President Biden hailed these as more people working than at any other time in American history today. Ultimately, I suppose, though, this could be bad news, couldn't it, for the president, given that it seems to suggest that the Federal Reserve's attempts to soften the economy and slow down the rate of inflation are failing. Betsy Stevenson, we must leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on World News America. A look at the other news of the day now, and the presidents of Russia and Turkey have agreed to boost trade and increase energy cooperation at a meeting in the Russian city of Sochi. Part of the agreement includes switching some Turkish energy payments to rubles, a move which will help Russia following harsh Western sanctions on Russia's financial system. The two leaders also emphasized the importance of grain shipments out of Ukraine. And Russia and Ukraine are reporting that shelling has hit the site of the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Both sides blame the other for the attacks, which are said to have also hit nearby high-voltage power lines. Ukraine's state nuclear energy company, Enerhoatom, called the attacks a provocation by the Russian side, adding that no radioactive leaks had been recorded. This weekend, Colombia's new president, Gustavo Petro, is due to be sworn in as the country's first ever leftist president in a country that's been racked by decades of civil war. It was nearly 6 years ago that the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, otherwise known as FARC, laid down their weapons in a peace deal. And whilst violence may have fallen overall, dissidents and armed gangs have moved in to fill the gap created by the absence of the FARC. Our South America correspondent Katie Watson sent this report from one of the worst affected areas, Calcuc, the Calcuc Valley in western Colombia. The violence confronting Colombia ahead of the swearing in of the country's new president this weekend. Across the globe, climate change has worsened the frequency, intensity and the impact of extreme weather events. In the past month, for example, abnormally heavy monsoon rains in Pakistan have killed 550 people, forcing families to relocate and causing food shortages throughout the country. Today in France, the government activated a crisis unit to cope with an historic drought, which the Prime Minister, Elisabeth Borne, called the worst ever recorded in the country. And in the US, officials have been grappling not only with wildfires, but also flooding and extreme heat, in the light of which the Senate is now poised to pass a major climate control bill, which would make unprecedented investments in clean energy. Well, earlier on, I spoke with the climate change law specialist, Romney Webb, to discuss the significance of this bill. When the Supreme Court of the United States ruled to remove a woman's constitutional right to an abortion, several states immediately certified laws banning or restricting access to the procedure. Others made moves to ensure the right will be preserved, and abortion providers in these so-called haven states say that they're being overwhelmed by the increased demand. Our West Coast correspondent Sophie Long has this report.
Sophie Long, BBC News, Northern California.
I'm David Willis. Many thanks for joining us here on World News America.
Hello there. It's going to be a real roller coaster ride in terms of temperatures over the coming few days.